Hi, and welcome to week 4. I'm Kathy Wilson, and today we're going to go over some normalization examples. Normalization is a very important foundational concept in database design, and so I wanted to provide just a little bit of extra instruction in this area that's just in addition to what you can find in your book readings for this week and also in the PowerPoint presentation. So in general, normalization is a process for just evaluating and correcting any table structures or entities that allows you to minimize data redundancies. And when we are able to minimize data redundancies, we can minimize the amount of data anomalies that we find within our database. It's going to kind of also add on to the concept of determination that we went over in chapter 3. So refer back to chapter 3 if you need a little bit more information on determination first. Okay, so let's get started. First, we're going to look at this very basic example of a dependency diagram to just understand the concept before we actually go into an example utilizing actual attribute names. Okay, so how do we determine dependence to create this diagram to begin with? So what we do is we look at entities or tables that we know will be within our database, and from that we can determine by looking at the data that actually exists, or by talking to end users or looking at business rules to understand how the data actually flows within the database. That will help us understand how we can create this functional diagram. Okay, so by looking at this, so someone has already done that for this example, and we just have fictitious number attributes here. But let's say that somebody has looked at this data and said, you know what, this top part right here we know is the functional dependency section. So they've looked at this and said, well, C1 and C3 together, being the concatenated primary key, they do determine attributes C2, C4, and C5. Okay. However, in addition to that, C2 can also be determined by just knowing C1. Therefore, if you had C3 and C1, you still can know C2. But in addition, just knowing C1 will allow you to know C2. That is what's called a partial dependency. So a partial dependency is anytime you have one attribute within your table that is functionally dependent on just one part of the primary key. Okay, and that's what's key in this one, is in a partial dependency, it's that it's dependent on a piece of the primary key. So another dependency is called a transitive dependency, and that's what we have here. So someone has looked at this data and noticed that, hey, I can actually know what C5 is by just knowing what C4 is. So I don't actually need to know C1 and C3 to be able to get C5. And by the functional dependency up here, you can see that that is the case. If I knew C1 and C3, I could determine C5. However, just knowing C4 allows me to know C5. Okay, and when we have actual data here in my second example, it'll become a little bit more clear as to why C4 determines C5. But for now, just know that someone has determined that C4 alone can determine C5. Okay, so those are our transitive dependencies. So now, what do we do with these? We can know right by looking at this diagram that this functional dependency, or this dependency diagram, is in first normal form. It's in first normal form because it does contain partial dependencies and it does contain transitive dependencies. So to move through the normal forms, you have to get to second normal form, first remove partial dependencies, and then to get to third normal form, remove transitive dependencies. So we will go through those steps today and know that there are higher normal forms. And in this example, I'm only going to go through third normal form because it's the most common, and most transactional processing environments are in should be in third normal form. However, know that there are more normal forms, and there's also a concept of denormalization, and that will all be discussed within your normal course content this week. So this is just a little bit extra just to kind of help in the normalization process. So this right here is what we started with. This is our first normal form table. And we first want to get it to second normal form, we have to remove any partial dependencies. So remember that right here is our partial dependency. So the steps involved in removing a partial dependency are always the same. So you take the primary key, that is the determinant in this case, and create a new table as that being the primary key. Okay? And whatever attribute that is determined by that primary key also comes along with it. The one caveat to that is that C1 is going to stay in the original table as well. And the reason for that is because when you create this new table, there will need to be a foreign key primary key relationship between the new table and the old table. So this C1 value staying in the old table will actually enable that. So C2, however, gets removed. So this is the new table, and this is what's left of the old table. So C1 is still there, C3 is still there, C2 is gone. Well, it's gone from right here. And then we still have C4 and C5. Remember that when you rewrite the new table, you still continue to bring over any transitive dependencies that come along. So we can see that this table is right now in third normal form because there are no no partial dependencies and no transitive dependencies. However, this one right here has only been moved to second normal form in this process because there's still a transitive dependency here. Okay. So now we'd like to create a database whose tables are in at least third normal form. Okay. So this is what we started with: table 1, table 2, and we see that the only problem here is with table 2 having a transitive dependency. So just table 1 is going to come over here and just stay exactly the same. And I'm going to skip right down here to table 3 first. So table 3, we're going to take C4, which is the determining attribute in this relationship, and it's going to become just like when we did it with the partial dependency. It's going to become the primary key in the new table, even though it was not a primary key in the old table. So that's what's different about transitive. The transitive determinant is going to become the primary key in the new table always. And just like with partial, though, the dependent key or the dependent attribute is also going to come with it. Okay. So now it also has a functional dependence here. We always want to put the functional dependencies on the top of every single table that we create, and keep it when we have it on the old one or on the original ones. So now let's look back at the original table, and this is what it now looks like. It still has C1 and C3, that didn't change. It still has C4. So remember, anytime you're taking out a primary key, something that's going to become a primary key value in your new table, it needs to also remain in the old table. Okay. So now we have 3 tables that are in third normal form. So we have accomplished our goal. So now let's look at an example using real information and real data, or not real data, but at least real attributes. So in this example, how do you know that that you have all these functional dependencies, or well, we know we have the functional dependencies, but how do you know that you have these partial and transitive dependencies? Well, sometimes it's just common knowledge. We can look at this and say, if we know the ISBN number, we also would know the book title. We'd also know the publisher, and we would know the edition. Okay? We wouldn't necessarily know the last name of the author by just knowing the ISBN number, but we would know publisher, edition, and book title. Okay? And you can verify that by looking at the data. Another partial dependency we see here is if we know the author number, basically the author ID, we automatically are going to know the name of the author, the last name here. Okay, and then a transitive dependency we have here is we can realize that if we have a book title, that's automatically going to tell us that we have what the publisher name is. Okay. So I want to point out here, this is I think a good time to explain the fact that this right here is in first normal form. However, it's very rare that something ever starts in first normal form. So when you see data, this is probably the only time that I've ever seen anything in first normal form is if it's just in spreadsheet format and it's just on somebody's computer and they have just haphazardly just created their own simple spreadsheet to just keep track of something, not thinking about database design in any way. So they're just thinking, I want to keep track of my ISBN and the title and the author number and the last name of the author, publisher, royalty edition. Okay, so in that example, yes, we would be able to start from first normal form and move on from there. However, if a database professional was looking at this, they would automatically probably know that there's book information here, there's author information here, and there's publisher information here. So somebody that knows anything about database design is already going to know that there are 3 separate tables in this data, and possibly more, but they're going to know that there's at least 3. And so when they actually determine that there's going to be a book table and an author table and a publisher table, and think about the attributes within it, and then the relationships between them when they're maybe creating an ER diagram, they are going to automatically be in second, at least second, if not third normal form. So a lot of times you come at some sort of data, some tables, and it's already in second or third normal form just because whoever did it has the knowledge behind them to know that these are separate entities. Okay, so therefore I don't want you to get confused when you're doing your course project, your final project for this class, when maybe you created your ER diagram and you did a great job and really thought through the relationships very well and thought about the nouns and what you have the correct set of entities in front of you. And then when you get to the normalization part, you think, well, I don't understand. What do I do here? And it says show your steps of normalization. Well, you don't have to show them if you are already in third normal form. I don't ever want anybody to denormalize just to show first normal form, second normal form, and third normal form. What I do want you to do is create dependency diagrams like this for every single one of your tables. For your tables, I should definitely see this functional, there should be this functional dependency up here. And then as you're walking through this process, look at each table and make sure there aren't any transitive or partial dependencies that you may have missed, because it is possible. So even if you think that you just really nailed your database design, you still want to go through this process to make sure you didn't you didn't leave something out, okay, or you actually left something in that should have been pulled out. So let's go through this example though, just assuming that this is our data. Maybe we know nothing about database design. We just know we have all of this information and want to store it in the table. And we just know by looking at it that this is not good because we have identified partial and transitive dependencies. Okay, so just like with our last example, we're first going to start with moving to second normal form. So we have transitive or partial dependencies right here with ISBN is determining 3 attributes, and author number is determining 1. So that's going to create 2 additional tables. Okay, so we remember that we take the determinant in the partial dependency, and it's going to come out and become it's going to copy and become a primary key value of the new table. Remember, it's also going to stay existing in the old table. Okay, so it comes out, and then all of its determining attributes come with it. So book title, publisher, and edition. Okay, and remember that it has a transitive dependency that we have already identified here, so that needs to come with it. Okay. When we move to third normal form, we'll worry about that. So then we also want to look at author number. There's another last name. This is another partial dependency. So author number is going to be the primary key for the new table, and it's going to bring along with it the last name. Okay. So now in the original table, what we have left is ISBN, because it's still there. It just got a copy over here, but it's still in the original table. Book title is no longer there because it was a determining it was functionally dependent on ISBN, so it got removed. Publisher got removed, and edition got removed. Okay. In addition to that, last name got removed and got placed in the author table. So the only thing left is ISBN, author number, and royalty. And we can look at this further and just make sure it looks correct, because we really do not know the royalty amount unless we know the author number and the ISBN. So we couldn't just know ISBN and get the royalty, and we also couldn't just know author number and get the royalty. So this looks like a pretty complete second normal form database here. Actually, this one right here is in third, and this one's in third, and this one's the only one in second. But so these are at least in second normal form, I guess. Okay, so then lastly, we just want to change it to third normal form and remove this transitive dependency. So this table is going to stay the same. It's right here. This table is going to stay the same. It's right here. And the only thing that's going to change is book title is going to be the new primary key in the new table. And then publisher is going to actually come out of the table and be in the new book table. So, and this is the original table here. ISBN, book title, and edition are the last remaining things here. Okay, so now we have third normal form, and so I told you that it's possible that you would have looked at this information and already known what entities you're going to have here. And so if you had looked at this data and already known that there was a book and an author table, well, you would have thought, well, there's a relationship between book and author. And when you're looking at that relationship, you would say, you know, one book can have many authors, and one author can have many books. Therefore, you would have seen a many-to-many relationship. So once you see that many-to-many relationship, you would have resolved it by creating a bridge entity and putting the a book author as maybe the name of the new table. Okay, and so then we also you also would have known that there was a publisher table to begin with too, because you would have just seen publisher information. So just know that we could have come up with this information by just knowing database design, or we could have come up with it the way we did it today in walking through first, second, and third normal forms. So we come out with the same exact end result. However, sometimes if you don't understand normalization and don't understand this process, that if you don't create these at some point, you may miss that there is a transitive dependency or a partial dependency that you just didn't see when you were creating your ER diagram. So it's an iterative process between normalization and ER diagramming to just make sure that you have really identified your entities correctly, that you have relationships defined correctly, and so this is a great process. So I do hope that this helps you as you work through your normalization concepts this week, and I hope it also helps clear up any questions that you may have had when you're trying to write your final project, create your final project, and not wanting. I'd never want you to actually denormalize your tables just to show me the different levels of normalization. If you are just that good and automatically got to third normal form, great. But I still do want to see your dependency diagrams in that section so that I can look at it and know that you didn't miss any of the partial or transitive dependencies somewhere along the line. So I hope that was helpful for this week. I hope you're enjoying the class so far, and I look forward to the final presentations at the end.